Yeah. This meeting is being recorded, it says. So
Good. Well,
I should continue. This meeting is being recorded. So I either leave the meeting or continue. And I think continue.
yes.
Continue is
Just
the right. There we go.
all
Okay.
right. We're newbies and we're doing it.
We're way out there.
Zooming.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Well, it's wonderful to meet you, Norbert.
Yeah,
And let's put ourselves in our places. You are coming to me from
Indianapolis, Indiana, downtown.
downtown.
Still raining.
Okay.
It is today.
But
much of the night.
but there's joy there because the Colts won.
We did, yeah, yes. And I overslept. My wife woke me. That's the first time that's happened in ages because I usually wake her.
Well, good. Good night's rest and a winning Colts game.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great week, I can tell.
Yes, yeah.
And the Colts are going to figure into our conversation in more than one way as we continue. And I'm Shirley Showalter coming to you from Lidditz, Pennsylvania, where
What's the name of the town again?
Lidditz.
Okay, Lidditz.
It's actually named for a Polish town, and it's a Moravian village, and like Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Salem, North Carolina. This place was originally founded by Moravians, and it was sorry, I had to take care of a phone call there. I grew up on a farm as a Mennonite girl in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And now I have returned after 55 years, not to the farm, but not very far away. And one thing you and I have in common, among many, I believe, is that we love language and reading and writing.
Yes.
And both of us are authors. And our purpose today is to talk about your book.
Yes.
This one that I got as a gift from a friend, Judith Valente.
How did she come by it? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know if she purchased it or someone gave it to her and she passed it on. But when she knew I was writing a book called The Mindful Grandparent, she thought I should have your book. And her instinct was exactly right.
Good.
Because I find so much in common with you as a grandparent and writer.
Yes.
In case the viewers can't read this, it says The Return of Sunshine.
Yeah, and that title came very late. Actually, when the book was about ready to go to press, we had the publisher announced, Norbert, the original title was Cheerios in Tuscany. We had gone with our grandson and his parents to Tuscany for a week, and we rented a villa on top of a hill, and it was wonderful. But there was some kind of controversy about Cheerios in Chicago, and Cheerios were being pulled off the store racks and everything. I said, Norbert, we have to change this. So he said, send me a list of possibilities. So I just looked through the poem titles mainly, and I caught that one, and I said, and he said, that's perfect. The Return of Sunshine. The subtitle is his. I didn't make it up.
Okay.
And
all right.
The only thing that I selected was the word ecstatic. He had used some other word, which I didn't think was the strongest, most apt word. And I said, how about ecstatic? Because that's part of the vision of the mystics and so on, the Rhineland mystics. And he said, that's better. We'll go with that. So, but he wanted to let the potential reader know that I was an Indiana poet laureate.
Yes.
And I don't know. It didn't seem to help sales very much.
Oh, well, poets are used to that, right?
Yes, we really are. And it got even worse in the pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so the subtitle is Poems by a Laureate for Ecstatic Grandparents. And I love that word ecstatic in there,
Yeah, I do
because
too.
that seems to be a nearly universal experience of, if there's ever going to be a time in someone's life
Yeah.
when they feel spiritually enmeshed
Yeah.
and enfolded.
Yeah.
It might be at the birth of their own child, and
Mhm.
it might also be in a new and special way at the birth of a grandchild.
Yes, and we were in our 70s when we became grandparents, and that's a
Yes,
special ecstasy, I think.
yes. A great gift,
Yes.
especially at this time of life.
Yes.
But that gives us even more to give to our grandchildren. And so, what is it about this birth of Peyton? What's his complete name?
Peyton Benjamin Werner Lamm. Werner was his German grandfather who died when Peyton was still in the womb,
Ah,
58 of a heart
yes.
attack. Yeah.
Oh my.
So that carries the,
So he carries a lot in that name.
yes, he does. And Peyton is actually named after our great quarterback of
Right.
either or, Peyton Manning. Our daughter is a Peyton fanatic.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I have a niece who met Peyton at church on a Christmas Eve service one time, right there in Indianapolis.
Oh.
And
I wonder what church that was. Do you
I
know?
can't remember, but it was like she touched the hem of the garment.
Yes, the Pope.
Yes.
The Pope of the past.
Right, right. Well, so Peyton has this wonderful name filled with historical and family connection, and with a contemporary example that will probably fade with time. Peyton Manning is already, as you said, a hero of the past.
And in the Hall of Fame.
And in the Hall of Fame. So he will last. We know he will last, but not as a contemporary figure. A reminder that all of us move on, and all of us are mortal, even Peyton.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it's an immortal name, and I'm pretty sure Peyton your Peyton will continue a legacy of bringing honor to that name.
Well, thank you. The Germans don't like to say Peyton. They don't know. They don't understand the word, and they say Python.
Oh.
But they get used to him after a while, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He is not shy about correcting people.
Well,
including
yes.
his grandparents.
I know.
He and his mother spent the whole month of June with us here in Indianapolis, and it was just wonderful because we hadn't seen them in over a year, and but he loved being here. And the night before they left, he started to cry.
Yeah.
He just uncontrollably in our living room. It was getting time to go downstairs to their bedroom. And his mother said, "You like it better here, don't you, Peyton?" He said, "Yes."
Oh.
And so they went downstairs, and she said, "How did it go?" He started to cry again, I think, and she held him, and he said, how did he put it? He said, there's so much love here. I feel like my heart is exploding.
Oh my.
That was a 6-year-old speaking, I mean,
yes.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is a great gift that you and your wife have given him. And of course, your daughter has memories, I suppose,
Yes.
of this same place. So that sense of the importance of place,
yes.
and the connection of place with love.
Yeah.
Is no wonder he cried.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When you feel that,
Elizabeth keeps talking about him as an empath, and we're sure he is. I mean, he just
Yes.
has extreme sensitivity, you know. And
Yeah.
I mean, he can be very bawdy too, you know, and laugh and so on. But he's really an amazing child.
Yeah.
Uh, this is the other side of him. I think it was the four of us, Catherine and I and Peyton and Elizabeth, were driving somewhere during that week. And Catherine has a reputation for driving rather slowly and carefully. And I think Elizabeth might have said something, and all of a sudden, Peyton piped up, "Come on, come on." How did he put it? Come on, put it, hit it, girl. It was the girl that made it sound so funny, you know. And so we all laughed and laughed and laughed, including Peyton. He knew he had pulled one, you know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He'll try it again sometime.
Come on, hit it, girl.
Oh, well, in the beginning of your book, you quote from Parker Palmer.
Yes.
And say that if you doubt that we all arrive in this world with gifts and as a gift, pay attention to an infant or a very young child.
Yeah. That was so perfect for this book, you know.
Yes.
And I know Carrie Newcomer, who's a wonderful folk singer, and she loves Parker Palmer, and they do workshops and so on together.
Right.
And that's really how I came to him, through Carrie Newcomer, because she's always talking about and with Parker Palmer.
Right.
And then the other epigraph from the Echoing Green, I love the Songs of Innocence and Experience, and taught them many times by Blake. And that also shows the joy that children bring to the elders here. The old John with white hair does laugh away care, etc. Yeah. So I was very happy with those epigraphs. Sometimes it just clicks, and I knew that these were the perfect epigraphs for this book.
Right. They are. And it links you all the way back to the Romantics through William Blake, and to a contemporary spiritual author, Parker Palmer.
Yeah.
And it carries through your entire book, this idea of paying attention. Just pay attention to an infant or a very young child. And that's the very description of why my co-author Marilyn and I chose the term mindful grandparent. The grandparent who is noticing, paying close attention to the particularities of that one new human being, and in the process is learning to see, to hear, and to feel in altogether new and deeper ways.
Yeah, there's the print is a bit small in this book. I'm looking at the table of contents, and The Blessing of Attention is a poem in the first section, which, you know, calls attention to that, to my noticing how observant he was from the moment he was an infant. And the first time I held him, that's where the song singing.
That's number 20 is The Blessing of Attention.
Yes.
Page number 20. Maybe you want to read that.
Yeah, I would love to read that. I'm going to turn this lamp on. That makes my face a little brighter, but
well, that's good.
Okay, The Blessing of Attention. Your head is tilted slightly down. Light shines on your forehead. Your eyelids look almost closed, but are open enough your eyes can focus on something minute that has taken on great significance. grandson, there is something magnificently tender in your concentration at this moment. What your rapt attention says is that you have found something that speaks to your whole being. Without looking at me, your looking tells me you are in touch with the holy, and your whole being blesses me. In a way, that's it. The title of the book could have been that poem title, The Blessing of Attention.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. But in order for this to become a poem, you had to have the same kind of attention that he had. And
That's
it's
true. Yeah. So it speaks for both of us. And
yes.
then could I read one just a few pages after that on 24, singing Indiana Birdsong to my grandson? This is the first time I ever held him. We went over, he was born in 2014 on August the 17th. That's the day before our son's birthday. And the grandparents, the German grandparents came to visit, and they saw Peyton almost for the first time as we did, when we did. And I have a poem about that too, but I wanted to read this singing Indiana Birdsong to my grandson because there's a lot of music in these poems and in all of my poems. And I have worked with musicians. I have a poetry and jazz CD called Imagine Indiana in song and in words. And
Wow.
so this is, I was holding him for the first time and singing birdsong to my grandson, singing Indiana birdsong to my grandson. He is tired and cranky and fussy, and I decide to speak to him in the language of song. Not just because he is Colombian and German and American, and some part of him may recognize an ancestral song. I decide to sing the songs of Indiana birds to him here in southern Germany. I should call up and sing a song I know. I start with the hoo, hoo, hoo of mourning doves, and he stops fussing and turns his eyes and ears toward me. He keeps looking at me as if my music sounds familiar, and he wonders how I know it and can give it back to him. So I go with another song I know well, the bop, bop, white of the quail I remember from my Midwestern childhood. His eyes open wider as if he realizes I have even greater power than he knew. But every note of either song makes him quieter and calmer and brings him nearer to me as I enter deeper into the mystery and miracle he is. So that sense of wonder, I think, is, as you say, pervasive in this little book.
Yes, it is. And place. the way in which
I'm forever a poet of place.
yes.
And when I started to write, I began to become aware fairly quickly that I had three places that were especially central to me, and I even called them my spiritual centers: Southern Indiana, or Indiana, and then Southern Germany, where my ancestors came from, in the part of Bavaria known as Franconia, Northern Bavaria. And then at that time, we lived for 34 years on Long Island, and I wrote a lot of Long Island poems and have a Long Island collection called Bittersweet Along the Expressway. And the bittersweet is the bittersweet plant, the wild plant.
Yes.
But it also works in another way.
Right.
About the traffic and the rush, the fast pace and all of that, but also the striking beauty of Long Island, especially the eastern end, where we'd like to go to spend time on occasions. So, but yeah, that sense of wonder, it's as though Peyton became the embodiment of it for us,
Yes.
which is not unusual, I think, for especially older grandparents.
Yes. I am familiar with it. My youngest grandchild is 4. And so she is at a wonderful age for both being able to articulate her own feelings and needs very clearly,
Yeah.
but also to explore, and still has that connection to what Wordsworth, I think, called it trailing clouds of glory.
Yeah.
That children bring with them, as though they still have an awareness of the eternal, that the mystery where we all come from and where we all go. And it's that connection between the older grandparent and the younger child that creates that spiritual bond.
Yeah.
That is good stuff for poetry.
Yes, it is. And now I have, I'm working on a book of poems for children, and I had 2 chapbooks of them come out this year from a small press on Long Island. And eventually the book that includes all of those poems and some more I probably will write will be titled the Reading Owl's Kingdom. And I have a poem of that title. But the first chapbook, I think I sent you the cover of that.
Yes.
Recently, and that's Peyton Potter rides his unicorn, and
Yes.
he loves Harry Potter, and he also loves unicorns.
Yes.
So he's very obsessive about things, which goes along with the sense of mystery, probably. There are a number of poems about him in the first little chapbook with that title I just mentioned. The second chapbook is called Living with the Animals, and that's a line right out of Walt Whitman in Song of Myself. And it was fun to write those poems because we have a surprising number of animals. We live in a block of 56 townhouses. It's across the street from where Market Square Arena used to be, where Elvis had his last concert. There's even a marker for that there now. But we have a lot of wild rabbits here. We have squirrels here. We have chipmunks, and the rabbit population is taking over and is eating all our flowers.
Oh no.
Not all of them, but I mean a lot of them.
Yeah.
But there are some city animals in those poems. So,
Yeah.
but I started writing poems about Peyton before he was ever born, as the book shows at the very beginning. Right. And we were at the Athenaeum, which is in our neighborhood, which was originally Das Deutsche Haus, the German house built in 1890s, but it had to have its name changed near the end of World War I.
Yes.
And they changed it to the Athenaeum. And supposedly at the meeting at which they made this decision, one board member said, "I hope to God we don't go to war with Greece now." So we'd have to change Athenaeum.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with that process throughout the United States because my own heritage is Swiss, German, American, and Mennonites have lived in various towns Franconia is one of the areas of Mennonite farming near Philadelphia. And there was a little town in Ohio whose name was changed from Berlin to Berlin.
Oh. Little shift of accent there.
They didn't go Greek, but they just they didn't want it to sound the same. So yes, there's which is a kind of allusion to the dark side of the world. The child brings in the light And yet we are aware of the darkness that surrounds us. Stafford, I think, says the darkness around us is deep.
Yes.
And you have a poem, and maybe we could use this as our concluding poem since we're getting close to 30 minutes already.
Okay.
And the one that I have in mind is, let's see.
77.
77. Yes, it's
Yes.
the one that features Patti Smith, Bob Dylan, and the Nobel Prize in Literature. And it also is based on a hard rain is going to come, which is this idea of awareness of the foreboding and the potential evil in the world. And how I think it's just a beautiful poem of how you wove together an event that all the world saw.
Yeah, that's right.
And your grandson and his heritage and your love of music and your love especially of Bob Dylan's music. So this is one of your longer poems, but I hope you will read it for us and we can talk a little bit about it.
I'd be glad to. And I want to say that on November the 7th, I'm going to see Bob Dylan for the 50th time live in concert.
50th?
Yeah, but as I say, I started late. I know a guy who's seen him over 200 times.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've seen him once.
Good. His voice has gotten better actually in the last few years. I've heard he stopped smoking, but I'm not sure about that. But the title is Peyton, Patti, Bob, and the Nobel Prize in Literature. And it was wonderful the way Peyton heard me listening to this in his mother's little study and came in. So I'll start it. I'm in our dim bedroom in our daughter's apartment in Regensburg, listening to Patti Smith sing a visionary song I've loved since Bob Dylan wrote it in 1962 in his early 20s. A hard rains are gonna fall, to celebrate her friend and mentors being awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. I hear the door handle turn quietly as Patti makes her way through the first verse. It's my grandson, Peyton, too, a lover of music coming to join me. He senses how intensely I listen, looks up as I sing the refrain with Patti, taps her face on my iPhone, affectionately asks, Patti, Mama? Yes, she's a mama, I assure him. Then he watches as her voice goes weak. In the second verse, stumbles, stops. Sadness in her eyes, she says, sorry, I'm so nervous. The audience applauds generously in understanding. It's not just a memory loss, I know, but appreciation for the occasion, her love of the work of her old friend that made her break down. Patti asks the orchestra to begin the last section again. I feel Peyton move closer and hug me. He kisses me first on the neck and slides his lips up to my cheek. Sorry, he says softly. He understands at 2, but some do not get at 72. Now Patti's voice grows strong, full, intense as the great lines cascade out of her mouth and her hands rise as fists, and she rides the images and the vision and the strumming of the guitar and the soaring of the pedal steel and the rising of the violins, like the one Peyton's mama plays. Peyton and I are happy for Patti, and he speaks her name sweetly again and asks, Mama? And I say, yes, Patti's a mama, and think, an older Bob is also a loving grandpa. Peyton, satisfied with what he's seen and heard and felt, walks out the door, and I feel his warm lips on my neck and cheek and his appreciation of my singing the chorus with Patti and his intense grasp of Bob's lyrics, especially the line about seeing a baby with wild wolves all around it, and the prophecy that he repeats, and it's a hard rains are gonna fall. So that was a poem that I knew I would be writing after I had that experience. And I wrote it there, the first draft of it anyway.
Oh, it must have been so intense. And what I love about the poem is the way in which it's layered, about 5 or 6 layers deep, with even the context itself of the setting, where you are there watching and listening electronically.
Yes.
The door opens and in comes little Peyton.
He opens himself into that world.
Yes.
And enters into that world, you know.
Yes. So now we have 2 consciousnesses
Yes.
observing and listening and relating to each other as you are relating to her. And you said your grandson's an empath, and the poem illustrates this.
Yes, it does.
Because the whole world held their breath while she tried to find the words to a song she knew so well.
Yes, I had sung so many times.
Yes.
Perfectly, you know.
Yeah. And we're just all feeling it. It's actually, I think, the nightmare of anybody who's ever performed anything.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
That this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, and my wife constantly has dreams. We are both teachers, and she taught for the last 20 years of her career. She taught 8th grade. Yes. But she always, her dreams are that she's in the room and she forgot something, or, you know, doesn't have her book, or.
I know.
Yeah.
I've been a teacher most of my life too, and I have had that dream many times.
Yeah.
And the public speaking dream too, where you're out on the stage and there's absolutely nothing that comes forth. But so his little empathic self knows that this is, you know, he's sad for her. He feels what's going on, even if he couldn't articulate it. And the one thing he does know is love from a woman. He knows she's a woman, and then and he wants to know if she's a mama. That's the most important thing for him.
Yes.
That a woman is, because his own mama is the star of his life. And then the thing that I come back to in the end is that it's not only any song, but it's this song of prophecy for the youth of the future.
Yes. Yes.
And it was true in the 1960s, and it's true today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
That's
very true. Yeah. I have the strong sense that Peyton is going to be all right, because he's a very self-confident little guy in many ways. Sometimes he has his insecurities, like as we all do, but he loves to dance, by the way. And he and his mother dance. They have dancing sessions and days, you know, and she has gotten him to love both Lady Gaga and Lizzo. And,
wonderful.
And so she plays both of those for him a lot of times.
Yes.
And some Bob Dylan too. Our daughter is writing a PhD thesis on the lyrics of Bob Dylan and the dialect poetry of a very dear friend of ours and mine, from Franconia, my ancestor. It's my ancestral dialect, and she's working on that as a PhD project.
Interesting.
Her idea, she came up with it. And you might think, well, that's an unusual combination, but the friend is Helmut Haberkamp, and he's a dialect poet, but also playwright. He writes wonderful plays. So they get commissioned by, there are not that many dialect actors around, you know, but they come to him and they give him a topic and ask him to write about it, and they pay him a certain fee, you know, and he's really very good at it. But he has on the occasion of Bob Dylan's recent 80th birthday on May the 24th, Helmut released a book called, well, technically it would be Forever Young. This is it. And
Yeah.
it's 77 songs of Bob Dylan in Franconian dialect.
Oh my goodness.
So, and
Is that dialect related to what we call Pennsylvania Dutch?
well, I don't know that there's a direct relationship, but it surely would bear some similarities. And it's a dialect that my parents spoke in part also. So I can, I have gone, Helmut and I have done many readings together, and I read his poems in English translation, not mine, but some other people have done it. And then he has translated a number of my poems into standard German and a few into his dialect also. But I have a poem about that, about listening to him read poems in my ancestral dialect.
Yeah.
And ironically, I have a Shakespearean sonnet on that in one of my recent books, the Indiana Hill Country Poems book that came out 2 years ago. But he's a wonderful friend of mine, and he was in a Ober seminar, the most advanced seminar at the University of Erlangen when I was a guest professor, Fulbright guest professor, teaching American poetry. And my professor, sponsoring professor, invited me to be an auditor because it was contemporary British and American poetry, and I taught both of those. And I was the audit, not the audit, well, I was an auditor, but I was also the speaker, a reader of the poems, and I love that. But there was this guy Helmut there, and we agreed on the poems that we liked and the ones that we didn't like, and we agreed on everything. And at the end of the year, we were getting ready to go back. He wanted me to come to his apartment to check out his proposal for his PhD thesis. So I said, okay. And we did that, and I read it, and I made a few suggestions of other poets he could read, but I said, it sounds really great to me. And he said, can you stay for a glass of Franconian wine? And at that point, I was wanting to lose some weight from having drunk so much German wine. But I had to say yes. And he went out to the kitchen to get a bottle of wine that he had chilled. I mean, Franconian wine is mainly dry white wine. And he came back in, and I said, oh, look, I see you have a book on Bob Dylan. You interested in him? And he said, look, he pointed to his bookshelf, and it was all Bob Dylan albums. And that really brought us together too, because I was, as an Indiana poet laureate, I was part of a show called Who's Your Dylan? 6 Indiana singer-songwriters would sing Bob Dylan songs, playing with one another, backing one another, or there are a few musicians. And then I was asked to read Bob Dylan songs in between by the producer, who is Tim Grimm, who is a folk singer as well as an actor. And he and his wife lived in Hollywood for a while, and he's been in quite a number of movies. But he would have me read. He knew that I loved Dylan and had written a lot of poems in response to his work, so he had me read them. And I did that for 2 shows, and I said, this is not right. I have a poetry and jazz CD. I work with musicians. I want to ask the guy whose music I liked best was in the show at the time was Gordon Bonham. I love to go hear him play anywhere. And I said to Gordon during one of the sound check, hey, Gordon, you want to do something together tonight? And he said, sure, what do you want? Let's try one. And we winged it. And so I was told the story. People, the other musicians and singer-songwriters were backstage listening, and somebody said, my God, that's Norbert, with reading to musical accompaniment. And every time thereafter, I wouldn't read any poems by myself. Gordon had to be with me, and sometimes Tim Grimm would back me, and sometimes the man, a friend from Bloomington, Indiana, where IU is, also backed me because he was John Prine's lead guitar for 22
Oh,
years.
wow.
John, last
Yes.
year or so ago. But that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
But Peyton, I mean, there was one time, Helmut is in Franconian Dylan shows also. And there was one day when we both were in the Hoosier Dylan show, and it started at exactly the same time, even though they're 6 hours ahead of us. We have a lot to talk about when we get together. We usually we've seen one another almost every year, with the exception of the last few years when the pandemic has been on, and we didn't. But I still have seen him every year almost, because we go over to see our daughter's family, and they live not far apart. In fact, Helmut's native village is a few miles outside of the town where our daughter lives now. So that's really convenient.
Yeah. Well, now that you're hooked up with musicians backing you, you can live out that old adage, it's never too late to be a rock star.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, I started the guitar at the age of 64 and played it for 10 years. And I did some singing. And I wrote some some songs also with the music, but I have bad arthritis in my hands and I can't do it anymore. But it's a great 10 years,
Yeah.
One of the primary motivations for doing it was to learn more about the music so I could work even better with musicians. And
yes. Yeah. Well, and your poetry is in this book. These are songs to your grandson, and they're also prayers. It strikes me how often, sometimes you even put the word prayer in the poem.
Yeah, in the titles.
Yes, I don't know if there's one maybe that you'd like to choose to conclude our time of.
Maybe I'll just do the Return of Sunshine, since.
Okay.
Let's see. I have the page number somewhere. Where is that? Oh, yes. Prayer recited with my grandson on the Return of Sunshine. That's the whole title.
Yes.
76. So it's right before the Bob Dylan song. That would make a good ending. And by the way, I invited Peyton with me. It was a day when it was snowing and the sun came back out. It had been dreary. It's winter. It was in December. And I said, Peyton, come with me. We'll make up a song or a poem. And I'll say a line, and then you say the line. And that's how we did this. And then, I pretty quickly wrote it down as a poem. Prayer recited with my grandson on the Return of Sunshine. Thanks for lighting the frost on the trees, for shining on snow on Oma and Opa's suitcases parked on the balcony. Thanks for lighting up the bedroom in which Peyton plays with train toys. Thanks for turning the snow on roofs and church steeples below brighter white. Thanks for streaming in all the windows and visiting us after so much damp cold, and for making all the gray go away. Please come back and see us again. That's it. And I can still hear Peyton repeating it after me. That was a wonderful little experience we had. It was almost like a church service.
Yes.
Or of nature. Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And it's an idea I'm going to steal.
Good.
And I think
go for it.
I think the people who read this blog and watch this video will also enjoy that idea of poetry not being something esoteric and far away, but something you can share, whether you write it yourself or you read someone else's, and the children just naturally gravitate toward it.
Yeah, and I put in it what was right around us in the room and right outside the room and on the balcony.
Yeah. And we're back to that whole idea of
reflects our
awareness.
daily life. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I try to do in poems. And somewhere I talk about the elegance of the ordinary
Yes.
in a poem.
And you make that real for us and for Peyton. And I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us, sharing this
Yes, my
book.
pleasure.
And I want to get myself a copy of Peyton Potter Rides the Unicorn, because I know a little girl who will really enjoy those poems.
Oh, good. They're a little bawdy sometimes.
Well, that'll be all right.
Yes, the children love that, actually.
Yes, they do. Exactly.
Well, it's
Thanks
been a pleasure.
again.
And your book, by the way, is on the way to me. I ordered it through Amazon. So
Wonderful. Well, we'll keep getting to know each other better over time through our work.
great. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye.